Hello, everyone, and welcome to my second project, the Renaissance Rhetoric. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. First thing is, what is Renaissance Rhetoric? Now, we know it takes place during the Renaissance, but what is the rhetoric part? And that's what I should get into right now. Rhetoric is the art of effect or persuasive speaking or writing, especially the use of figure speech and other compositional techniques. And they also used a lot of metaphors back then for when they spoke to each other over written letters. And the person that's a great lead into this is a man named Erasmus. Now, Erasmus wrote a book called Erasmus de Copia, which is a Latin textbook. Now, based on your social status, you should follow this book for when you write letters. If you're rich and wealthy, you write letters. You write letters with big, elegant words that express deep beauty or some deep meaning. But for people in the middle class, they don't have to use such a big, elegant word since a lot of them couldn't afford books or had the best education. So here's some of his chapters right here in this slide that you can see what he used a bit in his textbook. And now I'm going to have one of my fancy people, or I should say sloth man, who's going to read his fancy letters, as you can see is me write my basic letters as a middle classer in red. So here we go. Your letter mightily pleases me. Once I had read your affectionate letter, I was carried away with a strange happiness. By your letter was I mightily pleased. The fact that you had written to me was extremely pleasurable to me. Your letter was very sweet to me. I cannot find words to tell the joys that your letter loaded on me. As you can see, the fancy sloth has used fancier words, bigger words, and metaphors, of course, to show how elegant he is and how fancy he is, using the book. But this leads into a great point of sprezzatura. Now, what is sprezzatura? It means being cool in the modern day, or their way back then, 1528, of being cool. Now, sprezzatura was written by this fancy-looking man with the hat, and his name is Baldassare Castiglione. Sorry if I butchered his name. And the book name is an Italian word, and just like the fancy sloth, it shows how you should act when being fancy or middle class. So think about it like this. It's a popular handbook that outlines fashion, morals, and values for anyone in any social class or system. So for the rich, you have to have the best clothes, or like the sloth top hat and a monocle. So something like that. And it's also a good way for codes. Think about it like this. Say you're in a group with jocks, or they're mostly all meatheads, or they're into sports or whatever. That's a group that you can see from a distance. Yeah, they all have their own little language of talking about sports or fighting someone. While you have another group that are all about technology and talking about tech. As you can see, if you went to their group, they talk about geek stuff or techie stuff that you probably wouldn't understand. So each section has their own language, their own values, and what is popular in their little groups. And that's what basically what he uses in his book and how people should follow it. So here are some examples. See, a courier must speak and well-known knowledge, and of course the qualities of seeing a woman who has like supposed to have thin voices, not too rough, but just nice, little dainty body movements, language that involves words that we use, depends on your social status of how each of these examples can affect you in your social status. Now, he uses metaphors in one of his books, and here's a little quote from it in the next slide. And here's a read from it. Outwardly, beauty is a true sign of inner goodness. This loveliness indeed is impressed upon the body of a varying degree as a token by which the soul can be recognized for what it is, just as with trees the beauty of the blossom testify to the goodness of the fruit. Now, honestly, when I read this, I had no idea what he's talking about. I had to look it up, try to figure out what it was. So what I found out when I got from it, Castiglione's used the metaphor comparing a person's beauty and goodness to the beauty and its goodness of flowering and fruit producing tree, almost like a woman dancing with fruits bearing, very elegant, producing good fruit, and she's beautiful. So after that, you can see some examples that I've also found that are very popular among modern society. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, Muhammad Ali. And of course, all you got to do is act natural, as you can see from the examples, which is easy. Now, the last philosopher, that I will talk about is a German man, a German philosopher to be precise, and a professor at the University of Basel, is Friedrich Nietzsche. Sorry if I butchered his last name too. So, what is Friedrich so important about? What does he talk about that's so important? Well, Friedrich, he questions common knowledge of the human race. So, think about it like this. He has an example of, he explains the word hard, and you look at a rock and you know a rock is hard. But what if someone else doesn't see the rock as hard, but soft? Like, words themselves and the meanings, they are linguistic, and he believes that everything, or what we're familiar with, is totally subjugated stimulation, because we make up everything. We come up with all the rules for everything. It's all just common knowledge. Now, let's say this. That's from this little blades of grass right here that's moving about. Now, when you look at this blade, you look at this grass, you know it's grass. It's green, it has blades, it's just little blades and all that good stuff. And it's green. You know it's grass. You've seen grass, you felt grass, you smelled grass, you touched it. It's whatever. But here's the thing. What if someone else didn't see it as grass? What if they saw it as, oh, that's not grass, that's probably just water. It's up to them. It's their entity. It's not their entity. It's their subjugated stimulation. No, it's mind blowing, right? It's crazy. All right, how about this? Here's a better example: apple and an orange. Why is this an apple? Why is that an orange? Why couldn't the apple be? Maybe to me, the apple is a banana and the orange is a pear. You can see that in his book, and what he talks about is that he believes that language is something, and it's about a thing that we can speak of: trees, colors, snow, flowers, but it possesses nothing but metaphors for things. It's all just a metaphor in the original entity that we give the objects that we see, feel, touch. And so the last person I'm going to go to, well, not person, but to play, that actually helps out more with metaphors, since all three men uses metaphors in their own way to help progress the way we use metaphors today. I'm going to go into a play that's called Troilus and Cressida. Now, Troilus and Cressida, it's basically Trojans versus the Greeks, about the great Trojan War that happened. So the characters here all uses metaphors to describe people, men, women, in any way. Doesn't matter. Everyone's fair game. So the examples of metaphors that they use was Troilus. Now, Troilus is this really creepy dude in the play that's going after this girl named Cressida. He's really obsessed over her. He wants her. And in Act 1, Scene 1, he metaphorizes Cressida as, quote, her bed is in India and she lies there like a pearl. See that? He sees Cressida as an object, as a pearl, something to gain, something to conquer with. And the person that's really helping egg this on is Cressida's really messed up but pimp of an uncle, who realizes that in the first act that Troilus is very interested in his niece, and he's willing to get Troilus to get to Cressida in any way possible, shape, or form. He's almost selling her to him. And of course, there's another metaphor to describe Panthers, because he describes the way how Troilus feels towards Troilus. And in the first scene, in the first act, he talks to Troilus, and he says, Troilus, the way of making a cake, the heating of the oven, and the baking, nay, you must stay the cooling too, or you may have a chance to burn your lips. Now, he's basically telling him, if you want to have your cake, then you can eat it too. I can help with that, basically. And as you can see, how this metaphors really do affect us in every way. Another example would be, how about this? In the play, there's a man named Ajax. Sorry, yeah, Ajax and Alexander. Alexander talks to Ajax and calls him a valiant. He's valiant as a lion, but not very bright. And plus, he's also emotionally stable with a lot of mood swings. He's basically calling him. Basically, he's just a meathead. He's good for swinging a sword, fighting, not really thinking, and he gets angry most of the time. He's a total jock, as we call it during our time. And so, those are the metaphors or some examples that I used from the play. And now, how does metaphor affect us in the present day? As you probably already read since I was on the slide for a minute, that the metaphors we use in our time, in the present time, are a lot more straightforward and to the point. And here are some examples of metaphors right now. America is a melting pot, the classroom was a zoo, he is a night owl, the stormy ocean was a raging bull, and the snow is white as a blanket. A lot of our metaphors are a bit more straightforward. You can understand them, while back then it was used to be more to describe something to someone in an elegant or the best or like the most intelligent way possible, as I should put it. But nowadays, it's just we use it all the time without even realizing it. Like America is a melting pot. I hear that all the time when I go to New York City because it is a melting pot, and so is America. All races and ethnicities come here, and it's just a gathering of just different races and people that you wouldn't normally see outside of certain countries or states. And yeah, that's about it for my presentation. I hope you all enjoyed it. Here's some of my works cited pages, and I hope you all have a good day and good night.